But tell us a little bit about kind of your background, where you come from in church, and kind of like how God led you to kind of feel like you really wanted to serve God and your family.
All right. Well, my background in church is I didn't have one. I was raised in a.
Make sure you're on here. There you go. Keep going. Okay.
I was raised in a family that didn't go to church. Separated parents. Church was not spoken of. There's this really attractive redhead that invited me to church, and when a good-looking redhead asks you to go to church, you don't say no. So it was her. So in high school, I followed her to church, and that was the first time I heard that there was a man named Jesus who I didn't understand heaven or hell, but I knew I was in pain, and he offered a way out.
Amen.
And I got saved when I was 16, and that changed everything. And then in 2005, I was called to preach. So I started Bible college and wanted to get out of the Army right away. God said no. He had other plans. And so really at that point, Charlotte and I both, she's always been called into ministry. For me, that was new. So we just continued to pursue that calling. And everywhere he moved us, he used us and taught us and trained us.
Amen.
And that brought us here. And this is where we really felt a home. And that was almost 4 years ago.
Yeah. How many places have y'all lived since you were in the Army as a married couple?
Since 2000, we've 15 homes. Since 2000, all around the world, and more churches than that.
More churches.
So, you want to talk about it?
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about kind of Charlotte, about kind of where your family was in like how many years do you think in those 15s you guys were actually, with deployments and everything, you actually were together?
Oh. No, he's deployed twice, and we've had various separations. He worked with CIT where he was away at, I get emotional, so I'm sorry. But where he's away with different special missions guarding various dignitaries. So I've never done the math on how long he's been gone.
Usually a deployable family, if they're moving a lot, usually they're actually together living in the same house about half the time as long as they've been married. Usually that's about the case, and I don't know if that's the case for you guys.
God's been very good to us because I've been very vocal with him in saying, I'm done with deployments, I've hit a wall, I need you to stop. So he's actually spared us from at least 2 actual deployments where Daniel had orders, and I told God, I'm going to keep begging until you give me this man back, and both deployments got canceled. So, I mean, he missed our first daughter's birth, and there's a lot of soldiers that have had so many deployments, but I just kind of got the squeaky wheel gets the oil thing. So.
Yeah. Charlotte, I wanted to ask you what it's like to be living in a city and want to feel like the love and the favor of God in God's house and in a church and not be able to find it.
I'm the emotional one, so I don't really want to go there. It's awful. Our last duty station, we just really experienced a time of like almost depression, but I know it was like spiritual, just extreme loneliness. And I know a lot of military wives, and I'm sure other people with various jobs go through that too, but it was awful because we enjoy serving, we enjoy inviting people into our home, and it just wasn't the season for that. Even though we really tried to fit in, we just never quite were welcomed in. So.
And Dan started calling me about a year ago and said, Pastor, we're praying about it. But we really are praying about maybe that God would allow us to come back to Columbus, because in those 16 years, 15 homes, right? In all that time, like it's been, when we were in Columbus, Georgia, we really felt at home there. And when we were serving Jesus as part of Rivertown Church, just for those months, we just sensed God wanted us in this community, in this church family. That we, like you go someplace, and people talk about this. Sometimes they blame this and they never join the church. But sometimes they'll say that it just didn't feel right, or we didn't sense God wanted us there, that kind of thing. And sometimes people will say that. When you say that for 5 years and we didn't do anything because we didn't feel right, that's you. But there's times at which that you sense that God, like even if it's for a brief moment, you sense God's pleasure, His favor, His strength, His grace, that you feel like you're chosen in that community, in that place. And some people walk past it and they just think, hey, that's nice, like a cool breeze. But they don't stop like a burning bush. And so, Dan, talk us through kind of your prayer strategy and what it was like to kind of choose to come back here. And as a military family, they haven't owned a home in how long?
10 years? 12 years.
So 12 years. They owned a home for a brief time as a young couple, and then they walked through that and they bought a home here, like to settle. And Dan's praying through and they're going to get out of the military. And this is going to be his off-ramp. So tell us about that prayer and how God led you guys to come here and how the military followed your plan.
Okay. Well, first of all, 3 months ago, you asked me if I'd retire in Georgia, Alabama. No. It was Colorado, Texas, all the way. I've got Texas plates and we're Colorado natives. But it was just never a thought, really. The only reason we were interested in coming back here was this church. That was it. And it's because we found a body of believers that we could fellowship with, and that's everything. It's fellowship is everything. And so we started praying, and the Army said, you have to move. No choice. We were in Wisconsin for not even 2 years. And they said, you have to move. Here's 31 options. And out of 31 options, you put them in order from 1 to 31. And so we prayed and prayed, and we knew which ones were at the very bottom. And we just decided that this next assignment I'd retire, and we've been patiently waiting for God to allow us to activate into the ministry. And so we just decided that this would be the top option. We have family here, even though we don't know most of you, your family. And this is a good place. It's a good place financially, where the monies that God's provided us in retirement can go further. And
they have 6 children.
6 children. And you can't live in Denver with 6 kids like you can in Alabama with 6 kids. And so it goes further. And then God started giving us a heart for ministry here and in the Fort Mitchell area, wherever He chooses to either plant a church or however He may use us. So that was our top option, and it was questionable if it would happen. But God opened those doors, and He opened them quick. There was only one house that we saw that we liked, that we could afford. That's the house He gave us. And it's more than we deserve. But it's what He wanted to give us so that we can use it for the ministries and for everything else. And what can I say? It's good to be a child of the King.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank y'all for sharing.